Nope, that's not what I need. There we go. Same old story. Gonna do this as quickly as possible. Got a nice Wednesday night here. Nice Wednesday night. Hopefully everybody's doing well. This shouldn't take long for the most part, but we do got maybe one or two things we gotta talk about. It's a basic preview. Y'all know how this goes. Just doing a few things here. Alright, pretty much good for the most part. Yep. Nah, I'm good. Alright, let's get this show on the road, I guess. Okay, I think we are good to go for the most part. Let me see. Yeah, we good to go. All right. Close this. What's going on, everybody? Hope you guys are enjoying your day. Got a very chill Wednesday Wednesday evening for the most part. It's been a pretty chill day. If you haven't been on Twitter. Now, if you have been on Twitter, woo, man. It's been that type of night. No doubt about it. It's been that type of night. But we do have some football to talk about. And to be honest, I ain't going to be here long. This is probably not even going to be an hour type stream. We're going to be very quick with this. We'll hit on a couple topics for the most part. And we'll say our piece for the most part and kind of just head out of here quickly. But we do have to give a bit of a preview here because it's week 2. Ravens take on the Raiders. It's our home opener, so obviously Baltimore's looking to put on a show. And frankly, this game, man, this game got to be different. You know, I usually do my best to come on here on a weekly basis and talk about competitive aspects in these games being competitive for the most part. Like I always come up here and say, Ravens got to be, Ravens going to be in a battle this week. They're going up against a tough team, competitive. Whether the team is highly viewed as a competitive team or highly viewed as a great team or not, whether it's a team over 500, under 500, it doesn't matter. We're going to be in a battle. It's going to be close. It's going to come down to the wire. I usually say all of those things. Can't really say that this week. I am not going to lie to you. I cannot say that this week. Not only because of the team you're going up against, but because of the circumstances in which you're going up against this team. There's no way I can sit here and pretend that this isn't a game that the Ravens should dominate. Now, there are factors that will make sure that this is not a dominating performance for the Ravens. And that's going to be the Raiders' front seven. That D-line is going to be the primary reason why this wouldn't turn into a blowout. If they get the best of our offensive line, Matt Crosby and those guys, if Max Crosby and those guys get the better of our offensive line, it's going to be a long day. It's going to be a frustrating day. And it's a game that will be a lot closer than it needs to be. But if the offensive line is actually able to hold up against them, this should be nothing short of a blowout. I'm going to be very honest. The team you're going up against in the Las Vegas Raiders, they're not exactly the greatest team. Defensively, They're really solid defensively. Their strong suit obviously is within their front seven. That D line is great. But their secondary isn't the strongest. They're solid overall defensively, but the secondary isn't the strongest. Their linebacking core isn't the strongest. Their front seven really is where they do their damage. That D line is where they do their damage. That pass rushing unit is where they do their damage. But defensively, they do have weaknesses, and that was clear as day last week when the Chargers ran all over the Raiders. They ran all over the Raiders because it was a day with J.K. Dobbins for the most part just took off. How do you do reactions without copyright? I get copyrighted for those things. There are ways that you can, but I'm not doing it. First of all, in order to do that, you have to edit a lot. Legitimately, there's a lot of editing that goes into that. You have to, first of all, you gotta cut those clip down. Any sort of reaction you're doing, you understand you gotta do clip by clip by clip. Every clip's gotta be 15 seconds of content to use. There's a whole thing that goes into it. But I'm just doing it for fun. So those aren't really monetized or anything like that. Like I said, I do this channel for fun. So I get copyrights for that. But if you actually want to make reactions without copyright, you're going to have to edit the content you're looking at. So if you're reacting to a game, if you're reacting to NFL content, you're going to have to edit those videos. And there's a whole aspect that goes into it. You can't go past 15 seconds of the content you're using for each clip. You have to edit those specific videos down. You have to change even the display and the context of what you're using. There's a lot that goes into that aspect if you actually want to do it without copyright. Hell, you could even have most of the clips focusing on you instead of the game itself, and you'd find a way to get it. It's so much that you have to do into that. But since I'm not really doing the reactions for that, I'm not taking it too seriously. I'm just having fun with it and seeing how it goes. I'm not doing it. If I ever wanted to test that out, who knows? Maybe week 2 I might try to test that out and see how far I can go with that. But it is what it is. But back to the topic. The run defense of the Raiders was not great against the Chargers. The Chargers ran the ball so consistently well. And yes, it was a J.K. Dobbins type of day. He was balling out against the Chargers D-line. They could not stop the run to save their lives. Just taking a look at it right now, the Chargers legitimately ran for over 150 yards. Now, Gus Edwards had 11 carries, 26 yards. He wasn't really the main factor that was running for them. But J.K. Dobbins, 10 carries, 135 yards rushing and a touchdown. Yeah, J.K. Dobbins was just destroying the run defense of the Raiders. So, obviously, with the Ravens having to take them on next, I think there is a clear emphasis of what the Ravens need to do in this game. J.K. Dobbins was balling out against that run defense, and the Raiders clearly showed that they had an inability to stop the run. So I think we know the number one thing the Ravens need to do in this game if they want to get a victory and get the best of them. But yeah, that D-line is pretty much the determining factor of how this game is going to go. Other than that, you look at the Raiders offensively. That's where you get the problem. Now, Gardner Minshew is coming in to be the quarterback, and we'll see how that goes. Hey, Gardner, he was able to beat us on week 3 when he was with the Colts, so you get credit for that. So Gardner Minshew can be a good quarterback. He can be a decent quarterback. He's borderline starter potential, but he isn't the type of individual that you truly trust in to be the guy to absolutely lead your team to victory. It's more so he's going to need help in guys that can show up and be able to get it done when they need it to get him done. Now, for him, he has a guy in Davante Adams. No question, he has a guy in Davante Adams who's, in my opinion, still one of the best receivers in the game. He's just in an unfortunate situation, but he's one of the best receivers in football. And Davante Adams can get hot if you just give him the ball and give him opportunities. So he's going to be the main aspect that Gardner Minshew is going to be looking to try to get the ball to. They're going to try to run the football as well, but it's not like they're this great running team. So again, offensively, I'm not really looking at a situation where the offense should really threaten our defense. Gardner Minshew is going to have moments where he can make some plays, but again, you got to take that serious and understand that he is a threat, but at the same time, there's not many weapons he's working with, and there's only so much you can expect Gardner Minshew to do. Disagree, Devontae's on the back nine. I mean, you're free to make that assessment, but who's he got throwing the ball to him? One thing you got to understand is great players are not always going to be able to thrive if they don't have anybody competent throwing them the football. And that shows. If Davante Adams was on another team right now, we'd be having a different conversation about Davante Adams. That's all I'm saying. We can make these arguments and say he's not good, but when Jimmy Garoppolo was actively not throwing him the ball or just blatantly missing the dude that was wide open, it was a different conversation. You need to have a good quarterback that's going to get you the football to showcase what you can do as a receiver. So we can make this assumption that Davante Adams is washed, but I'll tell you right now, you put him with Patrick Mahomes, you're not having that conversation about him being on the back end. That's all I'm going to say about that. He's not dealing with a great quarterback. It's the same thing we would see at times with Terry McLaurin. When you're not dealing with a great quarterback, it's going to be some issues. But it is what it is. It is what it is. And also calling Crosby a bootleg TJ Watt, that's still a good thing. TJ Watt is probably the best defensive player in football. So if you're a bootleg version of TJ Watt, that still means you're a damn good defensive player. And if our offensive line is not ready for Crosby, that's going to be a long night. Again, just taking a look at it offensively, there's nothing that you look at from the Raiders offense other than Davante Adams that really puts a major threat on your defense or really pressures this Ravens defense. They should be able to win that matchup. The Raiders aren't this great running football team, and in the passing game, Gardner Minshew is not going to light up your team. So, yeah, there's nothing offensively you're going to look at here and say, yeah, the Raiders are going to win these type of matchups. But who knows? Maybe Davante Adams, if he's winning his matchups, he could be something. Maybe Jacoby Myers can help out as well. But there's not much you can look at from this Raiders offense and expect to see them really ball out or do anything major towards our defense. If the Ravens defense stays focused and does their job, the Raiders offense is not going to have much to say in this game. And then on the flip side, the Raiders defense is the aspect that's going to literally keep them in this. It's literally going to keep them in this. No question. No question. It's going to be the absolute aspect that is going to keep them in this game. If that D-line for the Raiders is able to win their matchup against our offensive line, then that means it's going to be another week that Lamar Jackson's going to have to take off, utilize his legs, run the ball, take off, pick up extra yards, try to extend plays for 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds. So if the offensive line is getting beat, that's where the problem comes in. But in terms of this O-line, man, it's such a conflicting thing because with the O-line, if we're going to judge it based off of what happened in Week 1 in Kansas City, then there was really only one aspect that was bad. Now, with KC's D-line, overall as a unit, they have a really solid D-line. Their strength's probably more towards the secondary because they don't give up a lot of passing yards. Their D-line is probably one of the weaker aspects, but Chris Jones is such a force that he makes everybody else's job on the D-line that much better. But I look at the Kansas City's defensive line, and it's really good. It's solid, but it's not the elite of the elite. It's Chris Jones being the aspect of the elite of the elite. So that's kind of where we're at with that. And Chris Jones is such a force that he's just a problem to deal with. So when you look at how the offensive line performed, there was really only one issue, and that was the right side. But at the same time, you look at the issue of the right side and understand they're going up against Chris Jones. So what specifically could they have done in that situation? Taking a look at the film again and going back at it, you see Ronnie Stanley, other than the penalties, Ronnie Stanley was incredibly solid. He was not getting beat. He was not letting anyone get past him. He was doing a great job blocking, both in the run and the pass game. When it came to run blocking, he was right where he needed to be. When it came into pass protection, he was not breaking. Stanley was really good in this game, and there was no issues with blocking. The only issues with him was the illegal formation calls that was called on him. Voorhees, he was solid in this game. He wasn't great, but he was solid in this game, and honestly was sticking in front of his man and blocking well and blocking effectively. Linderbaum, again, one of the best centers in football. We don't really expect anything negative from him for the most part. Occasionally he'll get a penalty. I believe he did get a penalty. It was a hold call, which many looked at that and said that's a phantom hold call that shouldn't have been called on Linderbaum. But other than that, I don't think there was any issue with Linderbaum in this game for the most part. So yeah, you look at the whole left side of the offensive line and then our center, there were no issues in Week 1 when we went up against Kansas City. But then you look at the right side and you look at these three guys, and that's where the concern came in. So you looked at Falalele, and to be honest, One, he was going up against Chris Jones, so there's nothing you could do about that. He was bound to get beat by Chris Jones. But the way he was getting smoked by Chris Jones is unacceptable. A paper wall, a wall made of machete, could have done a better job blocking than Faalele. That's just how poor he was at trying to stop Chris Jones. And then there were just times where he actively wasn't blocking anybody. He'd go off the line of scrimmage. He's supposed to be helping out in some aspects, and he's just not blocking. There's one piece of evidence in film where I believe it was Chris Jones that I don't know who it was, but it was one of their defenders that was trying to come up the middle, and Faalele was supposed to be the assist there, have two guys try to block. I believe it was Chris Jones. It was two guys that were trying to block Chris Jones, or two guys that were supposed to. And you just look at the clip, and you're looking at the film, and there's two moments where Faalele is not blocking anybody. He's dropping back to try to block, and he's just standing there, blocking nobody. Faalele, he's been poor in the past. He hasn't looked great. And then he starts off week 1 and he still looks poor. I do not know what this team's fascination is with Faalele, but he does not deserve to be in the starting lineup with the way he's performed. Somebody needs to tell me what Ben Cleveland did to Harbaugh to get in his doghouse, because they refuse to put Ben Cleveland out there. What did he do? Everybody knows Ben Cleveland should be out there. Now, he's not much of an upgrade over Faalele, but he's better, and you should have the best player out there to start. Ben Cleveland not starting, it just doesn't make sense. And I would not be surprised if Faalele is out there again for week 2. It does not make sense why Faalele is starting over Ben Cleveland, and why Ben Cleveland is not playing at that right guard position. I don't know what he did to Harbaugh, but something's wrong there. And then you look at the right tackle situation. Rosengarten had his first taste of the NFL, and it was against Chris Jones. I didn't like a lot of the things I saw from Rosengarten, but he wasn't terrible. Though when he first did come in, he was the one responsible for getting that strip sack happening on Lamar. He just whiffed on his block. Lamar got smacked. Ball came out. Turnover. That was because of Rosengarten. And Faalele assisted on that strip sack happening. But Rosengarten was the one that was specifically the problem in that situation. I think Rosengarten is, again, as a rookie, he is a work in progress, and he's going to have to continue to work through that. But I don't know about how I would feel in him starting week 2. I'd probably put Mekari there, because Mekari was solid, and again, right now, he's just a better right tackle, or at least a more consistent right tackle. And since we're going up against Max Crosby this week, I'd prefer to just have Patrick Mekari out there as opposed to Rosengarten. But who knows how this is going to go. Again, the Raiders' D-line is the only thing that's going to keep them in this game. They're going to have trouble trying to stop Lamar Jackson. And especially when Lamar's going to choose to get out the pocket, try to extend the play, throw the ball down the field, or he's going to use his legs to step up, take off, and pick up extra yardage. That defense is going to have a long day trying to stop Lamar Jackson. But if they can break through our offensive line, they're going to have opportunities to try to get Lamar on the floor. And that could mean bad situations for us, empty drives, 3-and-outs potentially. So we have to see. That's the only thing I'm looking at. The Raiders' D-line is the only thing that's going to give them a chance to keep this game close, because their secondary is going to struggle trying to really keep up with what we're going to throw out there. Derrick Henry, the run defense is going to struggle because we're probably going to feed Derrick Henry the ball. This is a week where you have to give Derrick Henry the ball. So they're going to struggle to try to stop Derrick Henry. They're going to struggle to try to stop Lamar. And if they're going to look to run those 12 personnels, they're going to have trouble. I don't think they're going to really feel comfortable I don't think they're going to feel comfortable double-teaming Mark Andrews and just leaving Isaiah Likely open. Likely balled out on Thursday night when he so far, from what we've seen last year coming into this game, if Isaiah Likely is given the opportunity and you don't double him, he's going to be a serious problem. So now you're in a situation where you can't double Mark Andrews. But if you don't double Mark Andrews, he's another tool that can be utilized. Because if Mark Andrews is getting one-on-one matchups here, he's going to win those one-on-one matchups, and Lamar is going to throw him the ball. But even if he's not winning those one-on-one matchups, if you've now taken a little bit of pressure off of him and tried to go after Isaiah Likely can still win those one-on-one matchups. And even if you're trying to deal with those two, well, that's where they try to get Zay Flowers involved. And that's where they're going to try to get Bateman involved. I just think this is a bad matchup for the Raiders. And the only thing that's really going to try to help them is their pass rushing unit. That front seven has to get to Lamar. That's the only thing that's going to keep this game close. I think Baltimore has the advantage in every other aspect here. The Raiders' offense is not going to do much here. Gardner Minshew is not really going to do much against our secondary. As long as the Ravens play the way they're supposed to, which again is a very difficult thing to see. It's a huge what if. If the Ravens just play the way they're supposed to, that's a huge what if on a lot of Sundays. But we know for the most part, against opponents like this, they usually have themselves together. So if they play the way they're supposed to play, they should be able to win. But if they mess around and let this game end up being close, they could lose this game. Remember, they lost 3 games last year. They had no reason losing. So if they mess around in this game, like the Colts game, for example, they could end up losing this game. So they need to make sure they come out here, take this seriously, and not mess around. They have an opportunity to really dominate a team they are superior to. And that's what they need. And I feel like that's going to happen specifically because of the emotions that's going to carry on from what happened in Kansas City. Because those guys were pissed. The Ravens were pissed. They wanted that game badly. If you saw how Lamar was playing in Kansas City, he wanted that game badly. Isaiah Likely was balling out because he wanted that game badly. You could tell they wanted that game badly. And the emotions that you saw from the players after the game showcased that they were pissed off that they lost that game. So I'm looking at this Raiders game knowing they still got that anger, and I'm thinking this is one of those games you got to blow off some steam and just come out here and dominate against an opponent you are better at. Do not give them any reason to try to stay in this game. If the Ravens can do a few things in this game, they will be able to win. So let's look offensively. I think it's simple. The Raiders defense can't stop the run. J.K. Dobbins ran all over this defense in week 1. So there's no reason Derrick Henry cannot be able to run against this defense. If the offensive line's doing their job against a run defense like the Raiders, Derrick Henry should be able to run this ball effectively. Am I going to sit back and say he's going to rush for over 100 yards? No, I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know what his carries are going to look like. But Derrick Henry should be able to effectively run the football against these guys. So the Ravens have to look to get the ball to Henry. They have to look to establish the run game here because the Raiders defense is not good at stopping the run. So that's the aspect I would look at to start off with. Number 1, Ravens got to run the ball. Number 2, the offensive line needs to protect Lamar Jackson. I'm not trying to watch Lamar Jackson get 16 carries because he has to constantly break out of the pocket and scramble. I'm not interested in that. Lamar does not need to be running 16 times a game in order for us to try to win a football game. We don't need that. Through a 17-week period, I'm not trying to see Lamar do that. So this offensive line has to step up, specifically the right side of the offensive line. They have to step up this week and perform better, protect Lamar, give him time to throw the ball to these receivers, and let these guys go out there and make plays. So that's number 2. Number 3, just like we always say, we have to play a clean game. We only made one mistake in Kansas City, and again, it's due to our rookie, that turnover. That was a mistake. But other than that, the Ravens played a relatively clean game in terms of turnovers. However, the penalties were an issue. In this game, you have to play clean. So to commit as little penalties as possible. Do not turn the ball over, and you will be fine in this game. Do not give any sort of life to this Raiders team by turning the ball over. You're just going to put yourself in an unfortunate situation, and you're going to make the game harder than it needs to be. So run the ball, play a clean game by limiting turnovers and penalties, offensive line protecting Lamar Jackson, and last but not least, playmakers going out there making plays. We didn't get to see a lot of Zay Flowers in week 1. I'm hopeful we see more of that in week 2. We need to see more of Zay Flowers. And I'm not talking about utilizing Zay Flowers in the wide receiver screens. I think Tom Monken needs to chill off with that. I don't mind screens. And he talked about it. We didn't run enough screens last year. I don't mind screens. I just think the type of screens he's trying to run is it's not working out because he's trying to run these wide receiver screens. But if you go look at the play and how it's being executed, he's trying to run these screens and there's no blocking for Zay Flowers. So Zay's getting these screens, nobody's blocking, and then all of a sudden you have to see him try to go juke two defenders, and then he's just sidestepping and trying to cross people over. That's not going to work. If he has to make 3 moves after getting the football to try to go pick up a first down, that's not going to help out. So I think either you fix the execution on the wide receiver screen so that Zay's getting blocking when you throw him the football, or a better thing, utilize Derrick Henry in the screen game. That's exactly what Tennessee did. Utilize Derrick Henry. You're going to run 12 personnel. You can use one of your tight ends as an extra blocker. You bring Patrick Ricard out there, and you run a screen with Derrick Henry. That can work. Derrick Henry thrived on being utilized in screens when he was in Tennessee. That can work here. I want to see less wide receiver screens, more running back screens, because I think that is the key to helping out in the screen game and taking away that aspect of having to throw Zay Flowers the ball and say, go break 2 tackles to try to go pick up a first down and even more. I just think the wide receiver screens need to minimize, and if we're going to add more screens or run more screens, it needs to be going to Derrick Henry because that is something he was thriving at when he was in Tennessee. Utilize Derrick Henry in the screen game. It can work out. So yeah, those are just a few things we have to say offensively. Run the football. Offensive line blocking and protect Lamar Jackson. Play a clean game by not turning the ball over. And playmakers got to make plays. If we do that, yeah, Justice Hill on the screen too. Use him as well, and that's going to work out. If we can do those things offensively, we'll probably come up with 30-plus points. If we do everything I just said, we will come up with 30-plus points. Against this Raiders team, they'll drop 30-plus. If we do everything I just pointed out, they'll drop 30-plus. Defensively, what needs to be done? Number one, force turnovers. I think that's the number one thing that needs to be emphasized. If they take away possessions from this Raiders team and give it back to Lamar on the offense, we could kill this clock. This could be a very simple game if the Ravens defense can find ways to force turnovers. So, number one, force turnovers. Number two, limit the big plays. That goes to making sure that Davante Adams does not get off. I don't know who the primary corner is going to be on Davante Adams, but if he needs some help, give him some help. Just make sure 17 doesn't go off. That's the number 2 thing you got to focus on. Number 1, forcing turnovers. Number 2, limit 17, thereby limiting the big plays. You know, also got to put an emphasis on Jacoby Myers, but mostly 17. You cannot let Davante Adams go off, so you limit the big plays. Number 3, stop any aspect of the run game. If you take away the run game, you force them to be one-dimensional, and you're stopping the big plays. In all honesty, they don't have a chance to really do anything past that, because Gardner Minshew is not going to be able to consistently make magic like that, where he's getting nobody open down the field. They can't run the football, and they're now one-dimensional, and Baltimore knows they got to cover because all the Raiders can do is just throw the football at that point. So if they can make them one-dimensional, they'll be fine. Other than that, that's it. Force turnovers, limit the big plays, eliminate the run so they can become one-dimensional. If the defense does these 3 things, it's going to be a long day for the Raiders. So all in all, that's pretty much everything that needs to be said for this game. If the Ravens can execute offensively, they'll put up 30-plus points. If the defense can execute, the Raiders aren't even getting close to 20. It'll probably be 10 like it was against the Chargers if the defense executes the right way. But we'll have to wait and see for the most part. With that being said, what would be my prediction? Well, I'm going to be honest, guys. Normally, I say it's a close game. But with the way the Ravens were pissed off after that Chiefs loss, I think this is the type of game they're going to blow some steam off. Because these next 3 games afterwards are going to be tough. And they have this one game where they can afford to lose. So I think this is a game that they're going to come out and dominate. I would be surprised if the Ravens don't dominate this game. If they're in a close game, I would be shocked that they would be willing to let this team play that close to them. They should be able to dominate their opponents. I'm thinking of a situation where they win this game 31-10. 31-10, 31-14, however you look at it. But I'm predicting the Ravens are going to get a dominating win against this Raiders team. 31-10, 31-14. The best I can give you, 31-17. But it's going to be a double-digit win for the Ravens. However you want to look at the stats, you want to say Lamar throws a couple touchdowns, Henry gets a rushing touchdown, Isaiah likely gets in the end zone, Zay Flowers gets in the end zone. Whatever you guys want to say, however you want to distribute the stats, feel free to. But overall, I just see the Ravens dominating this game, knowing that their next 3 games are going to be tough, but also, using this game as a way to blow off some steam after that emotional loss in Kansas City for week 1. So, yeah, I got the Ravens winning this game. I have them winning it, let's say 31-17 just to be sure. They'll win it by double digits, but the Raiders are going to be a team that's going to try to fight back and put points on the board. So we'll say 31-17. Ravens defense holds them to under 20. Ravens offense gets over 30. They're going to run the ball a lot with Derrick Henry. He's going to find a way to get himself in the end zone. The defense is going to find a way to pick off Gardner Minshew. They're going to force turnovers, and they're going to dominate this game. So that's pretty much all from me. The Raiders are going to try to do their very best to come into Baltimore and pull off the upset, but they just don't have enough, in my opinion, to pull this off, especially if the Ravens play their style of football. So the Ravens are going to win their home opener 31-17. They're going to advance to 1-1 in the season, even things out after suffering that loss in Kansas City. And then from there, these next 3 games, at Dallas, Bills, and then at Cincinnati. You got to be on point. You got to be on point for these next 3 games. And you can say whatever you want about Cincinnati. It's a AFC North matchup. I don't care how Cincinnati's looking at that point. Cincinnati could be under 500 when we face off against them in week 5. I don't care. At the end of the day, it's going to be a tough game because it's an AFC North game. So yeah, they got to win this game because after they play the Raiders, they're going to Dallas, and then they come home to take on the Bills, which, by the way, is a primetime game. Actually, the Cowboys game, when they face off against Dallas, in Dallas next week, that's a 4:25 game. So they take that 4:25 game in Dallas, and then next week they come home back to Baltimore for another primetime game against the Buffalo Bills on Sunday Night Football. Then they travel to Cincinnati, which will be a 1 o'clock game. But yeah, Cowboys, Bills, Bengals. Right after right after this game, you got those next 3 opponents. So Baltimore has to be on their A game because if they're not, there's a good chance they're under 500 after 5 games. And that's not where you want to be. My prediction for the Ravens was to be 3-2 after 5 games potentially. I said 3-2 or 4-1. I had already predicted us to lose to Kansas City when I had us 12-5. I just thought week 1 going into Kansas City, it wasn't going to go our way. I just felt that would be the case, though I was praying we'd win. But when I made my predictions early on, I just thought, yeah, we'd probably lose the first matchup when we meet them in Kansas City week 1. I already have 3 losses from each AFC North opponent. No question. This feels like a trap game. I can't really say that. I don't think this feels like a trap game. What I feel is a trap game will be Commanders week 6. I think the Washington Commanders game, week 6, after the Bengals game, after you go through this gauntlet of Cowboys, Bills, Bengals, the Commanders game feels like a trap game. I can't say the Raiders feels like a trap game after everything we just went through in Kansas City. Had we had beaten the Chiefs, you might have a point. But the Ravens lost. They're 0-1. They have no interest in going 0-2. They take this seriously. This is not them coming off of a dominating win or a statement win against the Chiefs. They lost a heartbreaking game against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. They're not overlooking anything. They're pissed off right now. So I don't look at the Raiders game as a potential trap game. For me, after we go through this gauntlet of Cowboys, Bills, and Bengals, if the Ravens somehow go 3-0 after that matchup, and they're sitting here on the season 4-1, that Commanders game will absolutely be a trap game. No question. But I can't say this is a trap game, especially since we're coming off of a heartbreaking loss. They're not going to overlook the Raiders. You're 0-1 right now. You're losing on the season. So I can't put this as a trap game when we're currently losing on the season. There's nothing that screams trap game for me because we're not coming off of a high win. We're coming off of a devastating loss. So every bit of frustration and anger they have for the Chiefs, they're going to take it out on the Raiders. That's just how I feel about it. But that Commanders game in week 6, that's where you should look to see a potential trap game. Because if the Ravens beat the Cowboys, beat the Bills, and then beat the Bengals, and then beat the Raiders as well, if they beat the Raiders this week and then go on to win those next 3 games, and they're sitting on the season on 4-1, that's where. So you're saying the Raiders will go 0-2 and aren't pissed as well? I mean, of course they're pissed. They lost a divisional game. But again, when it comes to trap games, you're talking about a superior opponent looking down on their competition. The Ravens are a better team than not the Chargers. The Raiders are a better team. Well, that's a different conversation. The Raiders are a better team. The Ravens, my God, the Ravens are a better team than the Raiders. They are. It's not an argument. When you talk about trap games, you're talking about a game where a vastly superior opponent is taking on an inferior opponent and is overlooking them. What I'm saying is I can't look at this as a trap game because we're not coming off of a defining win in Kansas City. We're coming off of a heartbreaking loss. And yes, the Raiders are coming off of a tough loss to a divisional opponent. So they're going to be fighting too. But when you've got when you got an inferior team that's pissed off and trying to fight, and you've got a superior team that's pissed off and trying to fight, then there's no trap game. There's no trap game there. Because what would the Ravens be overlooking here? Why would the Ravens overlook their opponent when on the verge of going 0-2? So it can't be a trap game. I'm not saying the Raiders weren't pissed off that they lost to the Chargers, a divisional opponent. I'm sure they were. I'm sure they didn't want to get humiliated to start the season. Of course they're pissed off. But we're talking about a trap game. And in a trap game, it's literally a superior opponent overlooking an inferior opponent. I'm saying the Ravens have no reason to do that because they're not coming off of a defining win in Kansas City. They're coming off of a heartbreaking loss. So why would they overlook the Raiders? Why would they overlook the Raiders? How would it be a trap game? Why would they overlook this team when they know if they mess up in this game, they could go 0-2? Why would they overlook this? They didn't win in week 1. They're trying to get back in the winning column. Why would they want to go 0-2? They've never gone 0-2 in the Lamar Jackson era. Why would they want to do that now? So I can't say it's a trap game because there's no way the Ravens are going to overlook the Raiders. They're going to take this 100% seriously. They're not coming off of a high. They're coming off of a tough loss. So I can't say it's a trap game because of that. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say for the most part in terms of this preview. I'll probably look to make a video maybe tomorrow just to outline some of the things we talked about here. But I wanted to make a quick stream about this just to talk about this game, about some of the things. And I'll probably make a video on this tomorrow or Friday most likely. But I wanted to give my 2 cents early on about this Ravens and Raiders matchup for the most part. But it is what it is. We'll see what happens. I'll read some of you guys' comments, and I'll probably head on out of here. Because I got something to watch at 9 o'clock, and I ain't finna miss that. With the Ravens, if things don't click, it's going to be over. If they don't execute, they'll be in trouble. I don't think it'll be over if things don't click. You can win ugly, even if things are working out. That's why I would just say, if things don't click, they're just going to be in the battle with the team they shouldn't be in the battle with. If things don't click, they're going to be in a tough, close, nasty game with the Raiders. And they don't need to be in that type of game. They shouldn't be in that type of game. We should run for 200 yards against the Raiders, light work, and get Henry some West Coast finesse cooking. I don't know about that. We'll see, man. We'll see. You know, there's a lot of things we should do, but the Ravens don't always do things we think they should do. Going to be Ravens 28-plus points. They're going to score 30 points in this game. I have them winning 31-17, so we'll see. Can't take this team lightly. Ravens have to stay focused. I know they're not going to take this team lightly. They've never gone 0-2 in the Lamar Jackson era. They're not looking to do that now. 35-16. We'll see. That's not a bad prediction. We'll see. But I don't think the Ravens are going to be scoring touchdowns through and through. But we'll see. How will your O-line hold up against Crosby? That's going to be the question that has to be solved. If they hold up well against Crosby, the Raiders aren't going to really have much to say in this type of game. But if they are struggling and Crosby's able to get to Lamar a few times, it's going to be a long day. But we'll see. We'll see. What's going on, Sam? I missed you on Thursday night. Did you go live? I was here. I was live streaming the Ravens-Chiefs game. You can just check that on my channel. That was a heartbreaking loss. We were here. We were here. Everybody in the chat was wilding out on that game, man. It was crazy. It was crazy. Todd needs to relax with the 1-yard passes to Zay in the backfield, please. Yeah, he keeps running those wide receiver screens. It just seems like something he wants to continue to do, and I don't think that's going to be effective. I don't think that's going to be effective. If they get to Lamar fast, he's going to fumble. I mean, if you hit him on his blind spot, of course he's going to fumble. If you hit a quarterback if you hit them in their blind spot, they're going to fumble the ball 9 times out of 10. So if guys aren't protecting Lamar and they get to him fast, he's coughing up that football, no question. That's just how it is for most quarterbacks. We mess around and lose this game, remember, against the Colts last year? Yeah, I would assume they're not going to mess around because they're not coming off of a good win. They're coming off of a devastating loss. So I would assume they don't want to go 0-2 for the first time in Lamar Jackson's era, and they're going to make sure they go 1-1. But we'll see. Lamar hates the Chiefs just as much as I do. I think I'm starting to hate the Chiefs more than the Steelers. Good luck with that, bro. I will never hate the Chiefs more than I hate the Steelers. We don't even see the Chiefs enough to hate the Steelers. They're just the new Patriots. So if you hated the Patriots more than you hate the Steelers, then just treat the Chiefs like the Patriots. What's going on, Joshua? That's just how it is. If you hated the Patriots more than you hated the Chiefs back in the day, then you'll probably hate the Chiefs more than you hate the Steelers. But nothing is going to make me hate any other team more than the Steelers. I don't care what that other team does to us. I'm never gonna hate the Chiefs more than the Steelers. I'll never hate any other team more than the Steelers. That's just me personally. With Cowboys and Bills on deck, this is a must-win. I mean, yeah, they got to win this game for sure. They absolutely have to win this game. We need to air it out. Their secondary isn't good, and their D-line is elite. Yeah, I think their D-line is elite, but they're not the best at stopping the run. If J.K. Dobbins can run he had 135 yards rushing in that game. If they can't stop the run, and they struggle to stop the run in that game. If they can't stop the run, then obviously we can run the ball. Now, their D-line is elite in terms of getting to our guys, so their pass rushing unit is where we have to be concerned. But the Ravens should be able to run the football on these guys. If J.K. Dobbins can run the ball effectively here, Derrick Henry should be able to run the ball effectively here. And you can still utilize Justice Hill in the pass game, too. Thoughts on Harbaugh's comments on Derrick Henry? Well, you're right. I mean, I don't think anyone believed that we brought Derrick Henry here to run the ball 30 times. That's not what we're asking for. I think Derrick Henry should have 17 to 20. At most, I would say around 22 carries every game. But I say 17 to 20 carries a game should be more than enough for Derrick Henry. Especially because you brought Derrick Henry to help you win in January. What people need to understand is Derrick Henry's not here to help us in the regular season. They need to preserve him specifically for January. So 17 to 20 carries is perfectly fine for Derrick Henry because he's not here to be ran into the ground. You need him for January. So 17 to 20 carries is perfectly fine. But the aspect about we had 85 yards rushing, and most of that was Lamar, but that's just what we need. If we got to do that to win, that's cool. Our guys, Lamar, Henry, Zay, Bateman, Likely, Andrews, these are the guys we're going to lean on. I get where he's coming from, but there should never be a case where Lamar has more carries than Derrick Henry. And if that happens, that falls on the offensive coordinator, and that falls on Harbaugh as well. So I would look at that and say, Harbaugh, I get where you're coming from. We don't need to run Derrick Henry 30 plus times, but he needs to get at least 20 carries. That's where I stand with that. Why do you hate the Steelers? What type of question is that? Why do I hate the Steelers? They're our biggest rivals. Why do the Cowboys and Eagles hate each other? The Steelers are our biggest rivals. They've always been our biggest rivals. They've been literally from the early days of the AFC North. They've been running this division. Why? What type of question is this? Why would I hate our biggest rivals where we've had heated battles? Where we've literally watched games where I'm watching Ed Reed and Ray Lewis and T. Suggs go up against Ben Roethlisberger. And then we got to deal with Harrison and freaking Palomalu and Ike Taylor. Like, what are you talking about here? Why do I hate our biggest rivals when we've had some serious heated rivalries? The Bengals are your rivals, but you say Steelers more. Because we haven't even had remotely close to the level of heated games with the Bengals than we've had with the Steelers. Some of the most heated games we have had have been against the Steelers. Why wouldn't I? We played these guys in an AFC Championship game in 2008, and every Ravens fan had to sit there and watch Joe Flacco throw a pick six to Troy Polamalu while they're talking about Super Bowl 43 and watching freaking Ray Lewis on the sideline with doing this as the confetti's falling down and the Steelers are celebrating. We've had playoff battles with the Steelers. Everyone remembers the 3rd and 19 crap that happened in 2010? Where it got it to Antonio Brown. How does he get that pass? Ben Roethlisberger just yeets the ball down the field. Antonio Brown gets behind the entire secondary, and that cost us the game. We could have gone to the AFC Championship game there. We've had actual battles in the playoffs with the Steelers. We've had heated games in Pittsburgh, in Heinz Field, and had heated games at the bank in Baltimore with the Steelers, both in the regular and in the postseason. Like, what are we talking about here? Some of the greatest games we've seen, dog. Some of the greatest games. Brandon, please, let me ask you, what team are you a fan of? What team are you a fan of? I gotta ask, Brandon, who is your team? Who is your team? Who is your team? I have to ask that for a second. Who is your team? It's like, I didn't really pay attention. So you never paid attention. That means you just say 49ers. 49ers. So you're telling me you didn't have heated battles with the Seahawks? You don't hate the Seahawks? You hate the Cardinals more than the Seahawks? I gotta ask, do you hate the Cardinals more than you hate the Seahawks? When you've had heated battles in NFC Championship games, do you hate the Cardinals more than you hate the Seahawks? I gotta ask that. Do you hate the Cardinals more than you hate the Seahawks? Or are you just like, well, every rival is the same for me. It don't matter if we had heated battles in the playoffs or not. The Cardinals, I hate them just as much as the Seahawks, even though you've had heated battles with them. When you've had a legitimate rivalry, where you had to deal with that Legion of Boom defense, do you compare what you dealt with Seattle with what you dealt with the Cardinals? You hate them all equally? You don't hate one more than the other? I mean, I guess those heated battles you had with Seattle in the playoffs don't hold up. When it comes to sports and rivalries, you're always going to have rivals within your division. But there's always going to be that one team where you had heated battles. Again, we probably just view football differently. That's just how it is. Me and you have different perspective in football. I may be the only one on this. Maybe everyone else agrees on this. But in football, when you're dealing with divisions, there's going to be that one team where you're having heated battles. And that's going to be the team you hate the most. Because some of the toughest games, some of the most heartbreaking games, some of the most heated battles you've had would be with that one game. I can't say I hate the Browns as much as I hate the Steelers. We've dominated the Browns. What would I have to hate from them? The Browns have not done anything for me to hate them, other than them just being a divisional rival. I just sit back and say, they're another rival. We got to beat them. But why would I hate them? What have the Browns done to the Ravens for me to hate them? We dominate that matchup. If anything, they probably hate us for things more than just football, but we don't have any hatred towards the Browns. We dominated them. So why would I hate the Browns just as equally as I hate the Steelers when I've watched the Steelers beat us to go to a Super Bowl? Where I've watched the Steelers beat us to go to an AFC Championship game? Why would I have the same level of heat for the Browns when the Browns have never beaten us on a consistent basis? I can't sit back and say I hate the Browns. It's the same way I hate the Steelers, where the Ravens and Steelers have had heated battles that have decided the division. They've had heated battles that have decided playoff games. They've had a heated battle to decide who's going to the Super Bowl. Come on. I don't know. Maybe it's just we have different aspects or different viewpoints of how we view footballs. But in rivalries, it's some different aspects. Like if you talk to a Red Sox fan or a Dodgers fan and you ask them who they hate, they're bringing up the Yankees 100% of the time. And you're not going to compare that to any other type of rivalry. Because who you go up against when you've had heated battles, somebody that's equal to you, you've had heated battles, they've ended your season, they've beaten you at times, and you've wanted to get the best of them, it's been a back and forth affair. There's no way you can sit back and say, I hate a team that you've dominated. Like, because they're in your division, I hate them just as equally because we've dominated them. I mean, you guys have dominated the Cardinals. I can't sit, again, you've had times where Seattle has ended your season and headed off to the Super Bowl. I would assume you would have more hatred for them than a Cardinals group that hasn't really done anything to y'all. Because you've won that matchup a majority of the times. So it's kind of weird in that aspect to be like, well, I'm not going to say it's weird, but most people would sit back and say, yeah, I hate, if I'm in the NFC West and I'm a Niners fan, I would have more hatred for Seattle than I would for the Cardinals. The Cardinals can't beat us. The Seattle Seahawks have ended our season. They beat us to go to a Super Bowl. So, I mean, again, it is what it is. I guess everybody sees football differently. I don't have a problem with it. If you look at every division and you have the same level of hatred for all of them, whether you're dominating that matchup or not, hey, man, it's cool. But for me, as a Ravens fan, I've watched the Steelers end our season. I've watched them stop us from getting to the Super Bowl. I can't sit back and compare the heartbreaking losses that we've suffered from. I've watched the Steelers beat us to go to a Super Bowl. I've watched the Steelers beat us to go to an AFC Championship game. I watched the Steelers beat us on Christmas to win the division. I've watched the Steelers end our season before on multiple occasions. The Browns have never once ended our season. Never once. Next up past the Browns, not Browns. Next up past the the Steelers would obviously be Cincinnati because Cincinnati has ended our season. So I would say my hatred for the AFC North: Steelers 1, Bengals 2, Browns 3. You know, Brad, I'll tell you, man, you gotta. I don't know how long you've been watching football, but that is something you gotta get into the history of. And so just not just for, you gotta catch up, you gotta be knowledgeable for it, but because it's definitely something that could be interesting. You get into the aspects of rivalries in sports, you'll find some great stories. So I recommend it for you, Brandon. If you have any time, man, just look into sports rivalries. Not even just the Ravens and Steelers. Just look into sports rivalries in general. Whether it's basketball, whether it's football, whether it's soccer, look into some rivalries, man. Look into some legitimate rivalries. You will see some great moments. Some of the greatest sports moments in history come from these rivalries. And hatred is built off of those rivalries. And it's what makes the sport at times. So, it's all good. Well, you not knowing that is perfectly fine. You're not a Ravens fan. I don't expect you to know the history of that. But I would definitely say, as a fan of sports, I would recommend learning about some of the history of just rivalries. So you don't even have to learn about the history of rivalries with the Ravens and Steelers. Just in general, look at some of the rivalries, because there's rivalries that are outside of the division. You have rivalries inside of the division and rivalries outside of the division. Like the Cowboys and the Giants hate each other, but another rival that the Cowboys hate is the Niners. And the Niners aren't even in the same division as the Cowboys, but there's a heated rivalry that's surrounding that. The Ravens and the Titans, we have somewhat of a heated rivalry because we used to be in the same division as them when everything was considered the AFC Central. But there's a heated rivalry between the Titans and the Ravens. Look into that one. Rivalries in sports are fun. So, if you want to get into it, if there's a little bit of extra aspects of sports or new take or new aspects about sports you didn't know about, like sports rivalries, I'd recommend, Brandon, get into that, man. You'll see some real fun stuff from it. You will see some real fun stuff from it. Bears and Packers is another one. That's one of the oldest rivalries. The Bears probably hate the Packers more than any other team. The Lions haven't done enough to them. The Vikings haven't done enough to them. But the Packers, the Bears and Packers is the oldest rivalry in football. And the Bears hate the Packers beyond belief. That is a legit. If you ask a Bears fan who they hate the most, it's the Packers 100% of the time. AFC North teams usually destroy each other before the playoffs. Absolutely. Absolutely for the most part. Anywho, guys, I ain't gonna lie. I said I was gonna cut this off at 9 because I got something to watch. So I'm definitely going to look to end this here. Because I got something to watch. But this was just a quick discussion for the Ravens and Raiders game. I'll probably have a preview video as well to speak on this. Probably tomorrow or Friday, we'll see. Maybe I might make a preview video. Maybe I might be satisfied with this stream and just call it like that. But we'll see. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the Raiders and the Ravens in this matchup real quick. Ravens got to get this week 2 win, and we'll see what happens. And once Keaton comes back, we have the best offense in the NFL. We'll have a chance. Can you do a recap of what you said I just got here? Oh, sure. I'll probably make a preview video probably tomorrow or Friday. We'll see. I'll probably make a preview video. So the main points that I spoke of here will probably be in that video, because obviously when you do a video, it's a lot easier to hit on those points for what you need to talk about, as opposed to when you're doing a live stream, you stop to talk to the chat and answer questions like that. So I'll probably do a preview video and address the main bullet points of things I said I need the Ravens to do in order to win this game. So like the running the ball, limiting turnovers, and offensive line doing the job. I'll probably speak about that in my preview video probably tomorrow or Friday. So we'll see. Anyway, guys, enjoy your night. I got something to watch, so I'm going to have to end it here. I'll see you guys later. Stay safe, guys, and take care. Peace out.